What I'm trying to say in the final analysis, once we take control of ourselves, we have to stop being imitators and be innovators. And realize we've got a continent 12 million square miles. Wherever our bodies are on the face of this earth, our cultural and political heartbeat is in Africa. Whether you ever go to Africa or not, that is your home, that is the home of your spirit, and that is the heart and meaning and definition of your commitment. And none of us, any place in the world, will be free until that continent is free.
The Masi Warrior Clan was created because myself and others like Brother Nahisi saw a need for a young African group to analyze information concerning the African phenomena with no bias, with rigor, and with scholarship. We created the Masi Warrior Clan for the purpose of being an expert research team, of being a team that produced products, a team that was capable of producing products for African people globally to dispel myths, rumors, and provide them with accurate scholarship.
streets, Sutek tried to line it up, and he was like, I don't debate y'all. Y'all too disrespectful. Aboriginal Power won't even debate Sean because he's too disrespectful.
Yeah, he is though. No, he really is though. I can't really like you, bro. You cool, not a coincidence. I actually chop it up with but niggas that come off too heated and disrespectful, like I said, I'll debate you, bro. But we gotta get in the ring first. If you want to be disrespectful like that, at least disrespect me in the ring, bro.
Oh, God, bro.
Let's start now, bro. Can you disrespect me in a cage, bro? Like, I'd rather just do that. Then we go straight from the cage. I mean, put your ice on the way to the motherfucking computer, and we'll debate directly after that, nigga. Shit.
That's why I don't even be. Fucking with the nigga and shit. You feel me? Like, it's like, wait, bro, talk like that. We gotta get face to face. We can talk to you like that, my nigga.
Yeah, Peanut. You feel me? Go ahead, I got my brother on here. Peanut, what's the word, my brother?
Yeah, I appreciate you, man, but Lucky, let me say this, man. First of all, I'm an older brother. I'm young in spirit as I stay in shape, but I'm older. I deserve respect. Don't lie on me. You're not gonna get nowhere lying, because that's what's gonna make you fall face first. Second of all, I'm well known in the Pan-African community. I'm not nobody new. You're younger than me. You don't know this. I didn't put in work and expose Rob Bourne, Sutek, any of them people over there. They know it deep down inside. And I'm gonna be long-winded. I'm a Moorish American. I already had back and forth with them dudes. They erased videos. I'm not running from anybody. Don't ever say that stupid shit again. Third, and last but not least, I'm not losing no debate to no Pan-African, so don't ever say that shit again, famo. And that's it. Appreciate y'all, man.
You heard that? If Sean P want to debate, tell him to debate the champ over there, right?
Sutek want to know. So this like it's a pecking order. It's a pecking. So Sean want you, and Sutek want him. He say PMF ain't on his
No problem. There's no problem, man. Let's set up a Sutek debate, man. I don't like him anyway.
Okay, so I love that son, brother. I love that warrior mentality.
That's how it's going. I love you. Tell Sutek, tell me. There ain't nothing. My champ always in the chat. Album pop in. We'll set a topic. We'll set a date. We'll make it pay-per-view. We'll chop it up behind the scenes. I get their contact. We make it work. You heard it right here. He ain't ducking no favors, bro.
But that's what I'm saying. He put this over here on y'all channel, and then when we get in other
hey, alright, I will block your ass, nigga, because I'm well known for disrupting them chats over there. Nigga, stop fucking lying, nigga. You a goofy, nigga. I would never let a lame ass nigga around me in my face, clown.
You gonna block me?
It ain't no time I ain't ever been on the Pan-African channel and made my impact. Stop lying. I'm a real man, bro. Stop lying, fam. Don't do PNF like that.
PNF, he trying to trigger you, brother. And
the fuck up.
But listen, he did that to me, talking about, oh, word on the street, I'm ducking from John P. I've never even had but one conversation with this little disrespectful motherfucker.
Oh, okay, yeah, he a little hot. He like that.
So he like...
from Africa, but they will be able to tell you about Africa. They wouldn't be vaguely saying they from Africa, brother. Like when a European says I'm from Europe, he doesn't say I'm from Europe. He says I'm from Germany. I'm from a particular province. I still got people out there, right? You know, when people say hold on. When people say they from Asia, They tell you where about from Asia they from. They tell you their province. They tell you they still got people out there. These people will confirm that they are indeed a part of their heritage. But you niggas was calling y'all African? Oh, mysteriously, you have no contact with the people you say you descend from. So I don't believe you. Bro.
Hating Africa and hating the African, we ended up even hating ourselves without even realizing it. Because you can't hate the roots of a tree and not hate the tree. The roots of a tree and not hate the tree.
You ain't no Indian, please try again. Everybody know you's an African. And Malcolm X said, you can't hate the root without hating the tree. Now take a look at you, you's a wannabe Cherokee. And I told you before, you need some therapy. And why you never show the genealogy? You owe your ancestors an apology. And you know they turning over inside of their graves just because you don't wanna come from a slave. So you gotta take this whip dance. I caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple. Caught another apple. Caught another apple slipping. Hey, caught another apple. Let's go slipping. Hey, caught another apple. Let's go slipping. Hey, caught another apple. Let's go. Caught another. Let's go. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple. Caught another apple. Caught another apple slipping. Yo, check this out, man. You wasn't already here, man. Dane Calloway lied to you, man. The research guy lied to you, man. Karimio lied to you, man. Your ancestors come from Africa, whether you like it or not. So no matter what you do, no matter what you say, you will always be an African. You can't deny the facts. You can't deny the evidence. You can't deny the genealogy. You can't deny the DNA. You can't deny it, man. Whether you like it or not, you are African. Call the abo slipping. That's all we do. That's all we do. Let's go.
How the fuck y'all find an African in my fucking family, but y'all ain't find
his
y'all
own genealogy.
Shut the fuck up. That don't make sense, for one. Listen, y'all don't know what y'all did.
I feel like you standing on business.
Y'all lied on me, because y'all don't even know if that's me. And if y'all can trace that shit back to it's me, it's only 2 people in YouTube that got my information.
Yeah, he died by his own genealogy. You ain't an Indian, you ain't got a lot of me. Half of this track, best believe you lose a lot of sleep. Probably because you made it up to us honestly. You ain't a Cherokee, nope. You ain't a Chickasaw, nope. You ain't a Blackfoot, nope. Nigga, get lost. You just a fool with low comprehension. So I gotta come through with the henchmen. NAC, Sean P, Shy Son, Lucky. Don't forget Jay, got no time to play. Call that apple slipping with his genealogy. Now he's a con and I ain't talking about a singer. I'm coming for the top apple leader. He ain't a teacher, he's a preacher. He can't keep up, so we leave him. Yeah, he died by his own genealogy. You ain't an Indian, you ain't got a lot of me. After the track, best believe you lose a lot of sleep. Probably because you made it up to us possibly. You ain't a Cherokee, no. You ain't a Chickasaw, no. You ain't a Blackfoot, nigga, get lost. You just a fool with low comprehension. So I gotta come through with the henchmen. NAC, Sean P, Shy Son, Lucky. Don't forget Jay, got no time to play. Caught an apple slipping off his genealogy. Now he's a con. OTK. TKO. Now he's a con. OTK. You died. TKO. By your own genealogy.
From Africa, but they will be able to tell you about Africa. They wouldn't be vaguely saying they from Africa, brother. Like when a European says I'm from Europe, he doesn't say I'm from Europe. He says I'm from Germany. I'm from a particular province. I still got people out there, right? You know, when people say hold on. When people say they from Asia, they tell you where about from Asia they from. They tell you their province. They tell you they still got people out there. These people will confirm that they are indeed a part of their heritage. But you niggas was calling y'all African? Oh, mysteriously, you have no contact with the people you say you descend from. So I don't believe you.
Hating Africa and hating the African, we ended up even hating ourselves without even realizing it. Because you can't hate the roots of a tree and not hate the tree. The roots of a tree and not hate the tree.
You ain't no Indian, please try again. Everybody know you's an African. And Malcolm X said, you can't hate the root without hating the tree. Now take a look at you, you's a wannabe Cherokee. And I told you before, you need some therapy. And why you never show the genealogy? You owe your ancestors an apology. And you know they turning over inside of their graves just because you don't wanna come from a slave. So you gotta take this whipped in. I caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple. Caught another apple. Caught another apple slipping. Hey, caught another apple slipping. Hey, caught another apple slipping. Hey, caught another apple. Caught another. Let's go. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple. Caught another apple. Caught another apple slipping. Yo, check this out, man. You wasn't already here, man. Dane Calloway lied to you, man. The research guy lied to you, man. Karimio lied to you, man. Your ancestors come from Africa, whether you like it or not. So no matter what you do, no matter what you say, you will always be an African. You can't deny the facts. You can't deny the evidence. You can't deny the genealogy. You can't deny the DNA. You can't deny it, man. Whether you like it or not, you are African. Call the abo slipping. That's all we do. That's all we do. Let's go.
We are the victims of our own innocence. We didn't expect it. We were so unsuspecting. Some of us participated in it without knowing what we were doing. And to understand it, there's 200 years of history you're going to have to look at. 1400 to 1600. It's the major turning point in world history. At the end of these 200 years, the world would never, ever be the same again. Europe had come out of its bag. It had rescued itself at our expense. It had learned longitude and latitude again. Had learned how to helm ships. They had, in their search for Asia, and the spices and the sweets of Asia, they had discovered Africa en route, the greater prize. We are the victims of our own innocence. We didn't expect it. We were so unsuspecting. Some of us participated in it without knowing what we were doing.
Big guy, I got the game in the chokehold like a slip knot. Too much ambition, I got too much drive. I'm probably due for a pitch stop. Black dot, reppin' the team, reppin' the squad like a mascot. Yeah, I'm the one, you know that I got it, but I still speak for the have-nots. Big guy, I got the game in the chokehold like a slip knot. Too much ambition, I got too much drive. I'm probably due for a pitch stop. Black dot, reppin' the team, reppin' the squad like a mascot. Yeah, I'm the one, you know that I got it, but I still speak for the have-nots. Yeah. It's been a hell of a run. I done bagged all of the women I wanted to bag. I probably should slow down and settle with one. Probably should hit up my mama and tell her my problem. She always wanna pray for her son. Tell her I got it, there's nothing your God could do for me. I feel much more safe with a gun. Look what I've done, just look at what I've become. They thought I was stuck in the mud, I done came up. They gotta pay like I weigh, I made them double the funds. Niggas be hating, probably cause they wifey like me and she wanna give me the buns. She got a friend, told her that she can come too because 2 heads is better than 1. My competition is none.
What's good afternoon, everybody? It's your boy Sean P. The place to be, man. Like the show, share the show, tell a friend, we live. StreamYard was out for a lot of people for like hours. So you couldn't go live for like hours. There's no way it was gonna happen. Peace Thurman, Olu was good, Infinite Minds, Brother Melvin in the building, Timmy Turner. No Pseudo in the building, Donnie. Wisdom Show was good. Marie, how you doing, Miss Shar? Ramon was good, brother. We got fathead ass Mika in the building, talking shit already. We got Keisha, what's going on? How you doing? Rail, what's good with you, brother? What up, Doe Willie? He said that's why. Yeah, facts. I mean, I don't know if we still got the Zoom account. I gotta see. But I got Zoom, but the Zoom account with all the stuff on there, But yeah, you couldn't go live like StreamYard wasn't having it. It was some type of data issue between Google and StreamYard that was just prevent it from happening. So, man, what up, Tim Parker? What's good with you, brother? Peace to everybody out there. What up, Callie? What's good with you? Hey, like the show, man. Share the show. TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, whatever, whenever, however. Before y'all even ask me, any information shown is always going to be in the description of the video. There is a link to a book because lately I've been leaving y'all like PDFs, so access to download PDFs. So I don't know if y'all been paying attention to that or not, but I have been leaving the sources because as we are talking about a specific topic, I'm able to direct you in an area that would be helpful in future research or potentially substantiating some information in real time regarding the evidence that is being argued over this particular topic. So speaking of which, before we get started, man, if I'm not mistaken, they took down YK video, maybe some copyright reasons, or Dulcinea was upset because he clipped and played the video in an educational purpose, and he had to go back and re-upload some stuff and kind of take some stuff out of there. I think that was direct because it involved, I guess, her fake family. And she's in denial about that. And she was trying to protect her blackness, her Africanness. She was trying to hide it from people. And, you know, she kind of killed herself. So I think he had to re-upload a video because they're reporting. But the shit's live. I mean, it's accessible to people. You're on Sonetta, you all these different places making claims, and you keep losing. And then I go and I watch a little bit of Smoke Signal show because YK was like, y'all was over there crying, moaning, groaning, and bitching about the Sonetta shit. And I'm like, but y'all sit there, from my understanding, from what's being told to me, because I don't watch Sonetta. So what's being told to me is that you was able to do a whole presentation. The Sharice chick, stupid as fuck, she was able to argue her point And then there was some questions and stuff that transpired, and that's how y'all got beat the fuck up by Nepal, who's a super pseudo herself, and she ain't even got no methodology. But for the mere fact that someone as unintelligent as she is, in my opinion, regarding the subject matter, just using basic logic was proof positive that y'all are way unintelligent than she is, because y'all are confused as fuck. Y'all letting Nepal, someone who has messed up a lot of stuff. I don't even want to get into her, but she has a history of messing up a lot of stuff. And she comes through, maybe she's gotten better, I don't know. But she comes through and just uses logic, and then she knows where to go and hit y'all in the gut. Because she'll watch YK. She ain't gonna watch us because she ain't getting no love over here. Not on that misinformation she be spewing. We ain't doing that. Thank you, sister, for sharing it to your Telegram. Oh, no. The reason that you probably can't share it to Facebook is because of one of the links in the description of the book. It's a book, and that link goes against Facebook. So you probably would have to just message a couple of people and send it to them that way. She said she ain't black or African, right? And she's a fucking lie. Her DNA is over 80-some% West African, West and Central African. Her story that she's telling is coming from people that are West and Central African. Like, yo, bro, you're on a whole denial. Like, ain't nobody respecting that, bro. So listen, before I get into the business, you know what I'm saying? I did leave a book for everybody to download. It's David Eltis's work. As a matter of fact, remember, some of us already was familiar with David Eltis and some of his works. So we wasn't afraid of people bringing David Eltis to the community. But these people had the audacity to try to manipulate David Eltis' research and his argument and shape it into a manner to where they can singularly separate these black people and these people of African descent. You try to take black people and take the African out of the population of these people, and then try to argue that, yeah, it's not going to happen. So we're going to get into a little bit. But before we do that, you know what I'm saying? I got to come with this. I got one. You know, talking about, yeah.
Could be. But Africa is all heaven. Yeah. Because that's where we come from.
Run it up.
You ain't a wild Indian, cause you tame. You ain't a wild Indian, you just lame. You ain't a wild Indian, you ain't a wild Indian. You ain't no wild Indian, you ain't no wild Indian. You ain't no wild Indian, cause you black. You ain't no wild Indian, cause that's a fact. You ain't no wild Indian, you ain't no wild Indian. You ain't no wild Indian, you ain't no wild Indian. All you niggas do is duck smoke. Claiming you an Indian, you a fucking joke. Cause you ain't got the proof to verify. Saying you an Aboriginal, that's a lie. You niggas run from the baits. Me. You ain't the one cause you fake. You see the gun in your face. So nigga run for the gate. You ain't shit but a fake ass Indian. A fake ass Indian. You think you winning, but you will lose in the end. You will lose in the end. You ain't a wild Indian, cause you tame. You ain't a wild Indian, you just lame. You ain't a wild Indian, you ain't a wild Indian. You ain't no wild Indian, you ain't no wild Indian. You ain't no wild Indian, cause you black. You ain't no wild Indian, cause that's a fact. You ain't no wild Indian, you ain't no wild Indian. You ain't no wild Indian, you ain't no wild Indian. Why you stealing people's culture? When you got your own, you's a vulture. You got self-hatred, should've been on Oprah. I know why they call you smoke, cause you a smoker. How your name smoke, but you run from the smoke, bruh. Don't see a Negro, OTK, OTCon, We can't forget Lucy Hawkins. Lucy Hawkins. I don't know why Smoke is talking. Why you talking? When they was owned by the Indians. But this nigga think he's an Indian. What the fuck is wrong with these men? Damn, I don't understand. You ain't shit but a fake ass Indian. You think you winning, but you will lose in the end. You will lose in the end. You ain't a wild Indian, cause you tame, You ain't a wild Indian, you just lame, You ain't a wild Indian, you ain't a wild Indian. You ain't no wild Indian, you ain't no wild Indian. You ain't no wild Indian, cause you black, You ain't no wild Indian, cause that's a fact, You ain't no wild Indian, you ain't no wild Indian. You ain't no wild Indian, you ain't no wild Indian.
Man, y'all make sure y'all go over the YKs, man, and run that up, man. You ain't no wild Indian. You ain't no wild Indian. Come on, man. So let's get to this business, man. Like the show, share the show, tell a friend, It's gonna get real interesting today. It's gonna get real interesting. Right? So before we get to the meat and potatoes, right? Let me introduce a couple of people to a few things. Real quick. Okay, I'm gonna put it on the screen. Just like you got it right there, just put YK the truth. Not the truth, the truth. DA. You ain't no wild Indian. So, since they love AI, as YK say, let's do this little experiment real quick. Not even an experiment. Let's have a little teaching moment real quick. Howdy, how, Biasa. So let's do this real quick, right? When an argument goes against the source it cites, it's often referred to as inconsistency or self-contradiction. More specifically, this type of error can fall under several logical fallacies. Inconsistent fallacy occurs when a person makes two or more statements that contradict each other. For example, a company celebrating Pride Month while funding legislature who opposes same-sex marriage could be seen as inconsistent fallacy. False attributions. This involves referencing an unqualified, irrelevant, or fabricated source to support an argument. Fallacy of quoting out of context. This involves selective excerpting parts of a quote to distort the intended meaning of the original source. We saw this happen with Malcolm X, talking about the We American shit. The same thing with Dr. Martin Luther King, with the whole We Aboriginal shit. With other prominent African American people in our community, and works by several different authors and sources. The entire Aboriginal movement is based on quoting something out of context, false attributions, and inconsistent fallacies. Now, I want y'all to think about that and basically what I just said. Because what up, Andre B? What's good with you? Yeah, this song wild, ain't it? You ain't no wild Indian. Yeah, so think about the things that I just actually said. Well, what we just went through real quick. Hold those true and close. Okay. Now, I did leave information about fallacies and what they are, and you hear us talk about them all the time. But I did give you a general breakdown so that you can, catch up on how these people that we argue with on a daily basis stay in the realm of fallacies, and they use them like no other. I'm saying every single fallacy listed on this document, they use them. Period, point blank. There's no way, form around it. Okay, so now that I've introduced you guys to 3 things that I want you to pay attention to, which are inconsistent fallacies, false attributions, and fallacy of quoting out of context, we're going to get into a little bit of Smoke's show. What up, Melanated? Oh, hold on. Let me do this real quick. Before we handle our business, right? Before we get into the, we get into the bill. P, what's good with you? Let me drop this in the chat. You ain't no wild Indian. That's a fact. You know what I'm saying? They lying on themselves. So we just exposing them over and over and over and over and over. So that's YK right there in the chat. Right? So let's get to this. Let's get to this work real quick. Now, at the beginning of this video, what I found,
it happens every time with me.
At the beginning of this video, after they played a Sonetta video, or most of the Sonetta video, and the argument going on, somewhere around this point, Smoke says he makes the point that he would have just denied it all, and that he wouldn't have let them just get that out, and that he should have just had the conversation focused on the Indian slave trade. So now y'all want to be Indians. As you can see, the panel is these 2 pseudo-ass females, and then the rest of these are dropouts and dumbass dudes. Now, the reason that I have a problem with the 2 females is because I feel like they are intentionally caught in a belief system on purpose. They don't want to let it go. It's like a religion to them, right? It's just like all the people that we argue with for years over religion. But I think that they have enough integrity and but the audacity of them won't allow them to let it go. Like they're fighting the wrong fight. There's something that says maybe they will correct themselves. They just need to be around the right type of information to come out of the bullshit. But they don't surround themselves with intelligent people. When you have a panel and you got OTK on the panel crying like a little bitch, and you got Smoke crying like a little bitch, and you got Sachi crying like a little bitch, you got Guru, hoe ass, crying like a little bitch, you got Powhatan Savage, who claimed he from Nashville, but he really from Knoxville, East Tennessee, and he claimed to be a goddamn Indian, and he lying like a son of a bitch. And we call him lying, talking about his people in South Carolina own slaves, and then Dulcie pulled a source up, and we don't find the motherfuckers on this shit. And he talking about big Indian business. Bruh, you been to the penitentiary. You know I know you, bruh. I know now. You know I know you now, cause I did a little research. You know what I'm saying? You ain't quite all that intelligently, bruh. You ain't quite all there. You lying on this internet, bruh. You 2 different people. In the streets, you one way, and on the internet, you another way, my brother. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. But Dulcie and Sharice, out of all these people on this panel, they are at least going to read something. how they interpret the information that they read comes down to their lack of comprehension. But they are going to read it, and hell yeah, they do biased research. But at least they have one slight edge over the dumbass dudes on the panel. They will read something, and then they will negate what the author is saying and spin it. So, peep game. I don't want to superimpose, things. So I'm gonna let y'all see what the hell I'm talking about. But remember, focus on the three things that I mentioned: the inconsistent fallacy, the false attribution, and the fallacy of quoting out of context. And if you're unfamiliar with the inconsistent fallacy, again, remember, this occurs when a person makes two or more statements that contradict each other. For example, a company celebrating Pride Month while funding legislators who oppose same-sex marriages could be seen as an inconsistent fallacy. So using an author like David Eltis and arguing that the slave trade never happened, and he's arguing that the slave trade happened, that's an inconsistent fallacy. Or trying to say that the black people in America are not of African descent, and the author you're using is telling you that these people are of African descent. That's inconsistent. So I'm just trying to gear people up on what's going on. I shouldn't have gave those examples because I wanted you to see it for yourself. But let's get to this. Let's get to this shit.
You have to be muted the whole time she's speaking. Once she's done speaking, you call out.
These hoes is crying about Nepal. I don't go on Sarnetta channel. I don't give a damn how he run his channel. But I did hear that y'all were able to speak, and I heard y'all. And then when it was her turn to speak, he let her get her shit off. But when she started, y'all was interrupting her. And that's from the evidence that YK clipped. So Dulcie crying, Sharice in her feelings. Right? So let's see if we can get to this shit that Sharice want to argue about what she didn't get to do on Sarnetta.
That she doesn't know what she's talking about. She will immediately start talking over you. You cut in and say, excuse me, I was muted up the whole time while you were talking and saying all those things you said. It is now my turn to talk. Simon is going to say that she's right. She's right. It is her turn to talk. She was muted up. That
come
is
on, OTK. If that's you back there in the back, if that's you in the back, OTK, come on.
And they're going to start fighting to the point where it's going to be like, okay, now he's going to allow you to talk because you've shown decorum. But you have to then reiterate right after you come back is that she was wrong. And this is how she's wrong. Here's the real source. How is she going to bring up something from 14 years ago? How is that relevant to the day? You have to keep punching that.
Look, she just made a statement. How can Nepal bring up a video or bring up something from 14 years ago to argue? She is using your source. She is allowing the source that y'all thought y'all was using on Top Cat shit and then manipulated on down the scene with y'all little clips. She's using the source that she peeped YK do. She's using the same video that Sharice put up and try to, I think it was Sharice or whoever the girl is, because it can't be Sharice. They look like two different people unless she catfishing us in this picture. But she's using the source that y'all are using, and it's providing clarity. So what is you crying about? Ultimately, you shouldn't be crying at all. Prove her wrong.
That point over and over again.
I see you, Chief Holiday. What's up with you?
Smoke signal. Can I show the source again?
Yeah, show your screen.
Yeah, but y'all got to get out of y'all mind that being right is enough. That's not enough.
It's not.
You can be right all day. You can have the correct information. That ain't enough to win.
So this is what I thought that they would understand and grasp right here. digitization, and the World Wide Web.
Pause. This is what page? 347 of a book. And I think this is the book, The Rise. No, it ain't from The Rise of African Slavery. Hold on. It's one of these Eltis books. But we're gonna get into it. But I want y'all to hear this shit. Like, for real. Listen to this crazy shit. Now I'm pausing it right here because we have an opportunity to sit the video still. And what it says is, last year was the bicentennial of the abolition of the African slave trade by the United States, and 2008 is the bicentenary of that law going into effect. But there are perhaps better reasons to reconsider the patterns of the U.S. side of the African slave trade. More African migrants have arrived in the United States since 1992 than during the whole slave trade era. Pause. They're going to come back to this point where they say more African migrants have arrived in the United States since 1992 than during the whole slave trade era. Pause. Ladies and gentlemen, let me provide clarity. 15 million Africans crossed the Atlantic. 12.5 million survived. This is the overall number of the slave trade data. You break that down, you break that number of 12.5 million down, and you have them going in places such as the Caribbean, the South America, majority South America and the Caribbeans. You don't have them going into the United States of America until later on directly from Africa. Notice what I said. Directly from Africa is different. It's not the 12.5 million. The 12.5 million that actually make it to the Americas is throughout a period of hundreds of years. The data that exists directly from Africa to the United States is in the 300,000+. That's the direct from Africa number. When David Eltis says that there are perhaps better reasons to reconsider the patterns of the United States side of the African slave trade, more African migrants have arrived in the United States since 1992 than during the whole slave trade era. What he is saying that people from Africa more recently have migrated to America, and they have in greater numbers than the 300 and something thousand that were forced to come to America. And then the inherited numbers of people that were coming from South America and the Caribbean into the United States of America, which that doesn't even come up in the conversation. And then people are part of that conversation are not even digesting the simple fact that this was a triangular trade. So the people that actually, there were more people coming from the Caribbeans and South America into the United States of America than it was directly from Africa. But they don't get into that part of the trade in the conversation at all. Napa says in her conversation that we all agree that the number on the number of 300 and something thousand, but then there's breeding farms. Napa didn't even remember or think to add to the discussion that, wait a minute, what about the people that came from South America and the Caribbeans into the United States of America and were intermingled with the people that came directly from Africa? That happened. We have the porting information that shows an intracontinental slave trade. Eltis and the Slave Voyage website has two different types of voyages. Databases for how people came into the Americas of African descent. They have an intracontinental trade, and then they had the regular Atlantic slave trade data. Everybody on this panel has forgotten the intracontinental piece of this data. So, with that being said, Eltis is only implying that today, not like in the 17th and the 18th century or the 18th century, but today there's more people that arrived directly from Africa today than it did during the actual slave trade. Is not a gaffe on saying the African presence is much larger today. No, what he is saying and what has continued to be said is that the direct people from Africa is this number. The other people come in through other ways from the Caribbeans and South America. Yet and still, when you take two Africans and you put them together on a foreign island, they still are fucking African. It's natural. Ladies and gentlemen, men and women, no matter how they look or whatever ethnicity it is, we gonna have sex. We are going to have sex. If you put me and you isolate me on a plantation with a female and that's it, and we feeling each other, we gone, it's going down. Like Young Jock say. It's going down. If I don't clap the cheeks, somebody clapping the cheeks. And the next female to come in, maybe I'm clapping them cheeks. It's gonna be some cheek clapping. All in it. And a lot of what transpired, especially in the South, were those slave breeding farms that were forcibly clap cheeking. Not to add that the white women's infatuation for the Mandingo man, she was getting her cheeks clapped. And the white man's infatuation with the brown skinned woman, she getting her cheeks clapped by the white man. Now we get the mulatto. What are we talking about? They ain't thinking about none of this. Excuse me. They ain't thinking about none of this. But she is finna sit here and watch what she do with this source. I'm reading it to you first so that when she goes, you can pick up on what the fuck she's putting down quicker than me letting her say it and you have no idea and you got to hear it again. So let me finish reading before I went off edge. Then it says, moreover, the moment at which the second African eyes, listen to this, the moment at which the second, not the first, the second African diaspora overtakes the first in terms of size and diversity coincides with a technological revolution. He's saying there's a shift. So now we ain't even got to go back to Africa. We can get these people the way we getting these people, and then we can do what we need to do to flim flam wham bam thank you ma'am. That's how kids become slaves to the master. Remember, they were seen as property. So any kids that were born to that slave master, that was his property automatically. I mean, where are we going? Then it says, digitization and the World Wide Web have combined with an established computer revolution to provide historians easy access to the documents and, more important, the power to digest. Listen to this, because they're going to play on this word and manipulate the information they contain that is way beyond what the predecessors could have ever imagined. The impact of technology is particularly significant for a subject where the quality and the quantity of surviving records is generally very strong, and the geographic scatter of the documents immense. While there is much still to be discovered about the U.S. trade in Africans, we can now throw major new light on its rise and fall, the people involved, the size and direction, and a great range of other issues, many of which are not all quantitative. But listen to this, heifer.
Yeah.
So this is what I thought that they would understand and grasp right here. Digitization and the World Wide Web have combined with an established computer revolution to provide historians easy access to documents and, more important, the power to digest and manipulate the information they contain that is way beyond what their predecessors could have ever imagined. It already clearly says more African migrants arrived in the United States since 1992 than during.
You see how she did that? You see how she did that? She skipped the whole first paragraph and went directly to, the first few sentences, and went directly to the digitization piece, and then circled back to one sentence out of context. Ladies and gentlemen, I just told y'all to remember this. I said, listen to inconsistent fallacy, false attribution, and the fallacy of quoting out of context. She is not summarizing David Eltis correctly. She is in fact misrepresenting what David Eltis is saying, because she played on digitization and the World Wide Web have combined with an established computer revolution to provide historians easy access to documents, and more important, to the power to digest and manipulate the information they contain that is way beyond what their predecessors could have ever imagined. That's it. She doesn't read the entire thing in order. She jumps. And then when she jumps, when you're on a panel full of people that don't know context and don't have no motherfucking understanding, this is what happens.
Yeah.
So this is what I thought that they would understand and grasp right here. Digitization and the World Wide Web have combined with an established computer revolution to provide historians easy access to documents and, more important, the power to digest and manipulate the information they contain that is way beyond what their predecessors could have ever imagined. It already clearly says more African migrants arrived in the United States since 1992 than during the whole slave trade era. And he
okay, listen to what it said. Who the fuck has a problem with David Eltis saying that there's more people that migrated from Africa today than it did during the era of the slave trade, when we know the goddamn number was 300 and something thousand? But motherfuckers wasn't migrating to America in the time of the fucking slave trade. It just simply put, just like, yo, we finna just pull up, bro. No, they were forcibly brought here. And then when the illegal slave trade era kicked off, and this is what people don't understand, there was a period of the illegal slave trade. When the illegal slave trade occurred, the schooner boats were faster than the naval ships that the British was using, and a lot of them was getting away with their motherfucking their sale of Africans. And then they was coming down through the Caribbeans and doing business because they couldn't directly sell in America. So they would do their business down there, then they would do their business in some other areas, and then they would have these ports where they would be able to get these motherfuckers, I call them our ancestors, to these different parts and places that would end up being in the New Orleans of the world, the Alabamas of the world, the Mississippis of the world, even certain parts of Florida, Georgia, South Carolinas of the world, illegally. We have a whole thing about the illegal slave trade, and they want to sit here and ponder on something that they're taking completely out of context. And this is what I meant by what I said about these two women. Sharice is intentionally, because I don't think she's stupid. Dulcinea is dumb. But Sharice don't act like Dulcinea. She don't fabricate shit. She has a belief and she tries to argue the belief like a religious person. And she stays there. She ain't too much, well, I don't know, because I mean, the only times I've heard her speak and I've listened to her, she ain't the one that makes major claims and then try to perpetuate certain things. She has her limitations. Dulcinea tries to jump out the fucking window. Sharice will shut the fuck up. My point is that she lacks comprehension right here. But let me let it finish.
Behind it, it said that they can manipulate in the documents.
Hold on.
Sheree,
Let me tell you something, Sheree.
You gotta remember, you
missed it right there. You missed it. Hold on.
It's not the information, sister. You could be right all day.
Right.
It's a fight.
Listen,
it's how you present it, when you present it, and how you rebut they attack.
What you should have said is right here. This right here. You just keep repeating this. More African migrants have arrived in the United States after 19.
You see how stupid they sound? You see how stupid they sound? You're not negating the fact that David Eltis told you that these fucking Africans was taken and brought here. You just jumping over that. You're saying to Sharice that she shouldn't argue and cherry pick this one little part about more African migrants arrived in the United States since 1992. That does not falsify the argument. That does not give validity to the discussion. That in fact implies that a slave trade occurred. There was several 100,000s of fucking Africans against their will brought to fucking the United States of America and were enslaved and spread out in the early goings of the fucking country. Yo, Yodi, why the fuck are you emailing me right now, yo? Like, for real, bro. I see you in the chat, bro. Why the fuck would you email me right now in the middle of this shit, bro? Because you have no fucking idea. And then you email me an image that don't have nothing to do with black people. This doesn't prove anything. And then when I show you where the image comes from, you're going to look like a silly sack of shit because you're doing the same shit Vino do. And I'm going to show everybody that shit. You're going to learn to stop being stupid. You might as well sit on your motherfucking hands, my bro. For real. You tripping. But my point is, why the fuck is OTK telling Sharice how to fucking argue a fucking source, and she clearly don't even grasp it, and we know goddamn well none of y'all grasp just a paragraph. This ain't even the whole shit. This is just the paragraph. Because David Eltis is walking you right into what he is talking about. Because in the next paragraph, he says, the recent launch of the new transatlantic slave trade database permits an overall reassessment of colonial America and the U.S. involvement in the slave trade over the more than 3 centuries. And then it continues on. She don't read it. She don't read it, go down the pages, give us the rest of the information, none of that shit. So she doesn't know the context in what Eltis is arguing. And then you got OTK trying to tell this sister that she should have stayed on more African migrants have arrived in the United States since 92. That is bullshit. I bullshit. Clearly, you dumb motherfuckers don't know about how the population of people arrives. Wait a minute. Let me be a little bit more clear. Let's take the focus off of people coming from Africa right now. What is the population of white people in America today? Who in the chat knows how many white people are in America today? What is that population? And then who could tell me what the population of white people in America 100 years ago? And then who could tell me the population of white people in America 200 years ago? Basically, what you're going to see, if you look at the data from today to 100 years ago to 200 years ago, you're going to see a population increase. The same population increase in the white population you're going to see in the black population. From 200 to present. And I'm just using 200 years. You're going to see the black population increase with the white population. Just pull the fucking census up and go to 1790 and look at it. From 1790 to today, look at the census data. But what you're going to see, the closer you get to today, if you work from 1790 upward, is you're going to see a low population of the Native Americans. These other peoples that are from places all over the earth. You're going to see those low, and then you're going to see those grow. It's natural for a population to increase because people are having sex. Let's just go back to the 60s. Let's fuck all that 200 years ago. Why did they call the 60s the baby booming era? What the fuck was happening? You had people that was fighting in a war, wherever the fuck they was at. They came back, and then all this sex was being had, and motherfuckers was having kids everywhere. Did we forget that? Are we ignorant of that? Your mother be Snoozeville, nigga, with your 2 viewers. You try to come in the chat and you see the numbers over here, and then we go to your shit, and you ain't even got 50 views, nigga, but you over here. So if my shit so snooze, why the fuck you here, Vino? You know why you here, Vernell? You know why you here? Because you can't lie no more. Everything coming out about y'all says Africa, African, Africa, African, Africa, African. And you can't deny no more. You can't deny no more. You a buster. Running around here playing like you something you ain't. So I'm going to let you distract me for a minute. And because I'm going to let you distract me for a minute, you're not distracting me. You ain't distracting me at all, bro. You know what I'm saying? You ain't distracting me at all. You're actually helping. Let me tell you why you're helping me. Let me show you why you're helping me. Yeah, I know you're here to learn on the slick. I know you're here to learn on the slick, Lucky. He here to be taught. Let me show this whole ass nigga why he here.
You don't die and go to heaven. You have to live in heaven. You know, a lot of places on earth could be, but Africa is our heaven because that's where we come from.
You ain't a wild Indian, cause you tame. You ain't a wild Indian, you just lame. You ain't a wild Indian, you ain't a wild Indian. You ain't no wild Indian, you ain't no wild Indian. You ain't no wild Indian, cause you black. You ain't no wild Indian, cause that's a fact. You ain't no wild Indian, you ain't no wild Indian. You ain't no wild Indian, you ain't no wild Indian. All you niggas do is duck smoke. Claiming you an Indian, you a fucking joke. Cause you ain't got the proof to verify. Saying you an Aboriginal, that's a lie. You niggas run from the baits. Me. You ain't the one cause you fake. You see the gun in your face. So nigga run for the gate. You ain't shit but a fake ass Indian. A fake ass Indian. You think you winning, but you will lose in the end. You will lose in the end. You ain't a wild Indian cause you tame. Cause you tame. You ain't a wild Indian, you just lame. You ain't a wild Indian. You ain't a wild Indian. You ain't no wild Indian. You ain't no wild Indian. You ain't no wild Indian cause you black. Cause you black. You ain't no wild Indian cause that's a fact. That's a fact. You ain't no wild Indian. 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 Why you stealing people's culture when you got your own? Use a vulture. You got self-hatred. Should have been on Oprah. I know why they call you smoke, cause you a smoker. How your name smoke, but you run from the smoke, bro. Don't see a Negro. OTK, OTCon, we can't forget Lucy Hawkins. Lucy Hawkins. I don't know why Smoke is talking. Why you talking? When they was owned by the Indians. But this nigga think he's an Indian. What the fuck is wrong with these men? Damn, I don't understand. You ain't shit but a fake ass Indian. You think you winning, but you will lose in the end. You will lose in the end. You ain't a wild Indian cause you tame. Cause you tame. You ain't a wild Indian, you just lame. You just lame. You ain't a wild Indian. You ain't no 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 wild Indian cause you black. Cause you black. You ain't no wild Indian. That's a fact. That's a fact. You ain't no wild Indian. You ain't no wild Indian. You ain't no wild Indian. You ain't no wild Indian.
Man. Stop lying about who you is, bro. It gets fucked, man. You want to be a Seminole so bad, but you can't be a Seminole. Man, you ain't Gullah. You ain't fled to no Florida. You African. So what is we talking about? What is we talking about? You know what I'm saying? Let's get back to this African business. You know what I'm saying? Let's get back to it. So Sharice over there arguing and misrepresenting the source. OTK want to tell her what the fuck she should have stayed on. It's a whole lot of crying, whining, whispering, and complaining going on this panel, and they do an 11-hour show about some of the bullshit. The whole time I'm over here like, yo, are you not comprehending what you're reading? I'm just on this little portion. Everything else is gossip. Read the fucking source.
1892 than during the whole slave trade era. Hey, listen, more African. You see what I'm saying? You gotta,
you gotta be like,
you ain't jumping the fight.
Yeah. You gotta say,
y'all forgot what they said after that. Did y'all forget what they said after that? Y'all go back and watch. They said, we're not saying that the numbers was.
Look, this dumbass nigga is so emotional that these women is trying to talk and explain what they're trying to say, and he ain't even listening. He ain't even listening to Sharice at this point because he trying to dominate the conversation and tell her how she should have fucking argued when he was on the panel. He was on the panel. He was mute. He was quiet. He was a church mouse quiet. This nigga was hiding under the pew quiet. He was a badass kid that just did some shit he about to get a beat for quiet. He went into his room and tried to lay down and go to sleep quiet to quit from, you know what I mean, to prevent a beating. He was on a panel with this woman. He said nothing. The whole exchange, he said nothing. All he said was, I sat here muted the whole time you bring up these other people and let them talk. Yo, why the fuck you wasn't saying this shit when she was right there? She in the middle of a fight. You left her by herself. And that's why black women don't feel protected. Because when they think they're in a safe space with bitch ass niggas, y'all don't ever show up for them. But then you want to turn around and criticize her ass and tell her what the fuck she should have said. And you can clip that shit and run with it. I said what I said. Hell no. If I'm her, I don't never fuck with your bitch ass again. How the fuck I'm finna sit here and do that? We in the middle of a scholastic fight. You got people debunking and refuting your bullshit right there on the spot. And then the whole time she read off this shit, you don't even butt in. But now you want to butt in when you feel bucky because you're on a platform with all your dumbass buddies. Y'all all in cahoots together, perpetuating lies. Ain't none of y'all had the audacity to fully understand what David Eltis is saying in this book? Yo, like, what the fuck is going on? Then you got whole ass motherfuckers like Vernell Abraham in the chat. He want attention so bad, then he gonna say, you share my name. Ain't nobody said shit to your bitch ass. You come over here with that little side piece haircut you got, trying to perpetuate yourself in the image of a Native American. None of these indigenous people know who the fuck you is. Vernell ain't even a native name. You don't speak the language. You don't represent the culture. None of that. You're a fucking freedman, my nigga. At minimum, if that, your peoples might be freedmen, my nigga. And them freedmen are African descent. As a matter of fact, I got something for your bitch ass since you got so much to say.
In the millions, we're just saying that y'all trying to diminish the trans-African.
Hey, see how loud you talking and how you talking over people now, nigga? That's what you was supposed to be doing.
No, I don't do that with women, bro.
Well, then, nigga, don't come over here with that bullshit.
See, he called him out on it. Sachi called him out on it. How you gonna come over here and talk as loud as you talking right now when you could have did that? You're like, I don't do that with women, bro. Sharice was in the middle of a fucking battle, bitch. You mean to tell me you couldn't speak up for her? You ain't doing that in a battle with women. You gonna let the women hash that shit out. But hell, she should have felt like she had support. Now you on smoke signal trying to play support, nigga. What you should have did was this. Nah, nigga, that's fake. And I hope Sharice is taking a mental note of this bullshit because every last one of these niggas is fake, Sharice. Why are you even playing with this shit? You shouldn't even be associated with these type of dudes. You ain't learning nothing. None of them can teach you nothing. None of them can lead you in a direction of real information. None of them will help you. None of them will allow you an opportunity to learn how to cross-reference and research properly. None of them will give you tools to help you be a better person and understand how to dig in deep and then get to where you need to get to with your information. They're not elevating you. You're being belittled, and they plan it out right in your fucking face. Dulcinea is married to an African. Go figure. The heifer claims to be no African in her. Her DNA said it. She pulls up her lineage, her paperwork on doing genealogy. Her paperwork says it. Says she was a slave. She was owned. Her people was property. Sold. Passed down. The whole 9 yards. She denying all of that shit. And then she's in bed with a fucking African. The hypocrisy in this stupid ass chocolate female. I want to call her the B word so bad. Y'all just don't know how bad I want to call her the B word. But I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to be better, do better. But the simple fact that this heifer denies any part of Africa, her genetics say it, her genealogy says it, her skin tone, her facial features, her hair, every genetic presence of Africa is all in this chocolate ass girl. She is from the slave state. Her black ass was beating heat. Her ancestors was beating heat outside picking cotton, corn, tobacco, whatever fucking else resource that was down there in Georgia. Her ultra melanated ass didn't get that shit with no motherfucking Indians. It's cap. Because listen, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to give you a reality check. And I know Thomas, Oklahoma, and Kevin might be in the chat. I just want to give you a reality check. Neither one of them, or any other Native American was outside intentionally picking cotton in 100-degree weather. None of them had a need for trying to deal with rice in a beaded heat, cotton in the beaded heat, at worst, corn, sweet potatoes, other natural resources. But them motherfuckers wasn't out there in 100-degree heat on their knees picking shit. So they wasn't gonna be black. Those in their ass is black. I'm yellow, they have a black. She 86% West and Central African. Denying that mere fact is crazy to me. And then you turn around and you damn near the same black as your husband from West Africa. Silly, crazy shit.
Nigga, you was a man, nigga. I don't do that to women. What the fuck?
That's what they use.
Nigga, you better go eat some gunpowder or something. Nigga, you better learn how to kill.
Look, I don't talk over the women. I don't cut the women off. Dosing their ass in the chat crying. Hold on, wait a minute. Let me say something. Hold on, wait a minute. Soft spoken. Hold on, wait a minute. Hold on. They don't even read the rest of the goddamn source. Watch.
My brother. I mean, the Cosman's point to Sharice. Let me say something to Sharice. It doesn't matter as far as if they're going to come and like, we're not negating that. It doesn't matter. You still come out back with that. You double back with that. Then you double back with before. Did it say?
Look, why the fuck are y'all telling Sharice to double back with a source that ain't giving you clear context outside of the intent and purpose, which y'all still ain't even got to because you won't even continue to read the fucking source? I wish she doubled back with that source on a panel with me. I wish she'd do it with Not a Coincidence or YK the Truth around. I wish she'd do it with Lucky. I wish she even do this shit with Shy One. Because the first thing an intelligent person is going to tell her to do, well, hold on, let's slow down. Let's read the source together. Put it on the screen. Okay, what is it saying right here? We can go sentence for sentence for sentence for sentence. We clearly will clean up whatever the confusion is, because we know that when David Eltis says more African migrants have arrived in the United States since 1992 than during the whole slave trade era, all he is saying that we know the United States' direct involvement with enslaving Africans and bringing them to the Americas is in the 300 plus thousands. We have evidence of a directly from Africa. That's what I'm talking about. All the other Africans that arrived in Americas come from the South, that is in the Caribbeans and South America. He says that. He has images in his book with arrows showing the motherfuckers coming into the United States. And then he got arrows coming directly from Africa to the United States. So if you bring this bullshit up, I'm going to pull up David Eltis's book, and I'm going to show you clearly in his book about the transatlantic slave trade what the fuck he's saying, because you cannot cherry pick an argument with me. It's not going to happen.
Before or after? Before or after? So you're saying it's before it does that say 1492 or 1992? Does it say 1492?
You see how dumb they sound? They all are stuck. So now their argument is this. if you listen to what they're insinuating, they are insinuating that all these other people of African descent came around 1992, not 1492. They just negated the entire triangular trade. They just negated how Africans arrived in the United States. If you read the book, The Slave Trade by Hugh Thomas, there's a section in the book where he talks about how they trained the Africans in the Caribbeans and in South America, broke them into a particular system and way of life so that when they entered the United States, they would be less rebellious and they would do the work. They were getting them acclimated to the work. And that's where the splitting up of different ethnic groups out of West Africa and keeping people apart, speak the same language, all of that shit goes into play. Like, you really got to put this into context, and we ain't even got context because we can't even read the fucking source. Just listen.
For 1992, I want to make it clear. You have to be like that. It doesn't matter if they're trying to pose it like they agree. They don't agree. So you have to keep on her neck no matter what.
Keep punching.
Yo, they was muting my mic like a motherfucker.
Yeah, me too. I didn't know it was a debate. I'm going back up there. It was a show.
That's why you got your ass whooped, nigga. Because you didn't know you was in hostile territory, nigga. Them hyenas.
Hold up. I know what I was getting myself. Hold up. The whole thing is, bro, I know what I was doing.
But then you did it wrong, nigga. You got your ass.
That's your opinion. That's your faggot ass opinion.
Hey, OTK.
OTK. Your boy, and instead of being real,
we got it. OTK.
OTK.
Fuck it.
Instead of y'all niggas coming and talking to your boy, you know what y'all niggas did?
Fuck it. Fuck it. Bullshit.
Listen, bro. Over there talking shit about the dog.
Fuck that bullshit,
nigga,
bro.
We gonna tell you when you fucking up.
This ain't no motherfucking hate on OTK session, nigga. Hold on, bro. This ain't no hate on OTK session. We fuck with OTK, nigga.
I know you do, Sachi. I'm talking about this nigga super. He don't fuck with me.
I just want you to recognize that your tenderness for ladies is what they using against you.
Yeah, it's all good. Exactly. But I play chess. I play chess though.
Your tenderness for ladies is what they're using against you. Who, because you know I don't watch Shanetta. Well, who in the fuck gonna come away with that type of shit? Who gonna come away with that? Who gonna come away with they use his tenderness for ladies against him? There's no way on earth is anybody in here gonna convince me that they were using his tenderness against him. Now, in just that little part, it's like 5 minutes. We got a whole half hour, 30 minutes of bullshit to like deal with. Like literally, they gonna tell the woman how she should have argued, and that was stupid. And then they got her trying to falsify Eltis' point and don't even know his whole point because they ain't even pulled it out. So let me get Vernell up out of here real quick. This is from powwows.com. Black Native Americans, what to know about Afro-Indigenous peoples. It's no secret that America is a melting pot of cultures. Yet while some people of European, African, and Native descent can claim a single race, racial, or ethnic identity, others have intersectional identities. Such is the case with the Black Native Americans. because their lineage traces back to both Africa and indigenous origins. Black Native Americans' genetic heritage distinguishes them from other African American and Native American communities. Despite making up a small percentage of the population, Black natives have a rich history in the U.S. Unfortunately, their stories are often left out of history books, which is why we must speak about them. Let's explore the history and the genetics of Afro-Indigenous to better understand this diverse yet underrepresented community. What is a Black Native American? While this topic is mostly overlooked in educational lectures, textbooks, and mainstream media, it is a significant part of history. Several 100,000 Black Native Americans still live in the U.S., and they deserve to know who they are, where they come from, and what their ancestral story is. Black natives are racially and ethnically African and Native American and are culturally affiliated with indigenous community. Historically, when enslaved Africans came to the country, many developed close ties to Native Americans. In addition, wealthy Native individuals owned African slaves and often reproduced with them. During the Indian Removal Act of 1830, thousands of African Americans enslaved and freed voluntarily traveled west with their Native counterparts along the Trail of Tears. Unfortunately, Black Native Americans are often, lack proper documentation, resulting in unclear ancestral origins. Today, most Afro-Indigenous peoples reside in the southern states and states associated with original southern descendants. Obtaining tribal membership in a constant battle for Black natives, some tribes, such as the Cherokee in 2011, have even gone as far as stripping their memberships. Even in 2022, many Black Native Americans still yearn for recognition and citizenship. Usage of Black Native American terms. Let me just say this real quick. The mere fact that you Negroes are online and want to be Native Americans so bad, you don't even want to be Black Native Americans, because anytime y'all claim that y'all indigenous or Afro-Indigenous, all you're saying is that you're of African and Native ancestry. And then when we look at your genealogy, you ain't even mixed with the Native Americans. When we look at your DNA, you ain't even mixed with the Native Americans. Not a coincidence, Lucky, Turtle Gang are three people that I've seen their DNA. Their DNA, the Native American part of it, is higher, has a higher percentage than all of you Negroes put together. Goddamn, Honey Clark from the Bar Reloaded got a higher percentage of Native American ancestry than any of you motherfuckers, and her shit is at 0.04%. So, to the colorists such as Vernell Abraham in the chat, this source kills your entire argument because you don't want to accept Africa. So now, Sister Bethy, Bottom Kittens, known as Top Cats, Dane Calloway, Carinio, the research guy, Sachi, Dulcinea, Charisse, OTK, who is a Khan, and I mean from West Africa, Cosmon, Smoke, Phoenix Moon, Aboriginal Power, Atachinus One, and whoever the fuck else over there on that side. If all of y'all are claiming to be indigenous, you're Afro-indigenous, which means that you got African ancestry mixed with Native American. The moment that you try to say no to that is the moment we all know you a fraud. And we know y'all are frauds because y'all ain't even the ones that are mixed with Native American. The 200,000, that small population of people that mix with the Native Americans, they ain't even online. You know what the fuck they are? They in the courtrooms and in these meetings arguing and fighting for their recognition. They're in these areas where these people are on these reservations and they're trying to stay claim to that shit. They ain't online lying. They're not on Sonetta. They ain't even on your platforms. You ain't even talking to them. Because they are the not a coincidences. They are the Luckies. They are the Turtle Gangs and others who come out and tell you, and Eric, shout out to Eric. He might be in the chat or he might be catching the replay. They come out and they tell you that I have African and Native ancestry. And it's only a few 100,000 of them. It's not millions. That's why we said out of 44 million black people in America, 2% of the 44 million, somewhere around 2%, has Native ancestry. So what is an Afro-Indigenous? Term that refers to people who have both indigenous and African lineage. What is a Black Native? Black Indigenous, Black Indian. These each refer to peoples who have both indigenous and African lineage. These terms can be, but are not always synonymous with Afro-Indigenous. Ultimately, their usage depends on how an individual chooses to describe them. United States Department of the Interior, Bureau of Indian Affairs, East Oklahoma Regional Office. Certificate of Degree of Indian Blood. This is to certify if Vernell Abraham, born in such and such, is such and such degree Indian blood of the such and such tribe. The date and the issuing officer. Vernell does not have a certificate of degree of Indian blood. But see, Vaasa's in the chat. Vaasa got all his shit. He in the same fucking place where Vernell is. And Vaasa got all his shit, know the history run down like the back of his hand, educating every fucking day. Vernell don't know none of this shit. None of it. Where's your card, little boy? And Vaasa says, and they so easy to get nowadays. He can't get one. Nah, this ain't no Vernell show. He just had something to say, Shy. So I had to go ahead and cook his little, line ass up. You know what I'm saying? Blood quantum. Blood quantum is a system developed by the United States federal government to determine how much Indian blood is required of an indigenous person in order to officially enroll with a Native American tribe. Blood quantum emerged as a way to measure Indianness through a construct of race. It became one of the primary ways to cap the number of people who could enroll in a tribe. Today, some tribes still use blood quantum as a criteria for tribal enrollment, though each federally recognized tribe has its own set of criteria for tribal enrollment. History of Black Native Americans. During the 1500s, Africans forcibly came to America during the prime of the slave trade. This is where our story begins, an era of shared slavery, where African and indigenous slaves lived together and brought forth illegitimate families in the eyes of the land. Not only did they share the experience of slavery in this way, but later on, natives owned African slaves as well. Babies were born, families continued, and blended communities grew. But let's fast forward to 1830 when whites forced indigenous communities to march west during the mass removal of their kind. Along with the natives came many of the same Africans that had integrated into the communities. Some came willingly, others came as black slaves of natives, and many of these individuals was black Native Americans. The Trail of Tears is an epical moment, not just in Native American history, but also black history. In 1865, the Congress abolished slavery, allowing free black natives to disconnect from their indigenous heritage and communities if they wished. An article published in the Smithsonian discussed the freedmen who lived in the Indian Territory at this time. They comprised free African American slaves of the 5 civilized tribes, the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole nations. Once slavery was abolished, only the Chickasaw refused to grant citizenship to black freedmen. In preparation for Oklahoma statehood, the U.S. Congress created the Dawes Commission, which was charged with the dissolving collective tribal land ownership and allotting land to individual tribal members. Thousands of freedmen came before the commission to prove their tribal membership and their right to shared land. Moving along through the history, black indigenous people haven't come too far in their fight for citizenship, representation, and identity. The past continues to influence the present. As the Dawes Act of 1887 plays a massive part in the current battle black Native Americans continuously go through to attempt to gain their tribal membership. The Seminole roll, the one that you ain't on, the one that you ain't on, Vernell, the one we can find Voss and them on, but we can't find you on. What kind of weird shit is that? In an NPR interview with Taya Miles, professor and chair of Afro-American and African Studies Department, she explains the problematic issues with the Dawes Roll and the effect of freedmen. That list, Dawes Rolls, was, you can click on it and get it, was segregated lists. It was segregated census that divided people upon their racial ancestry. So the Dawes Roll was organized by the Cherokees by blood and to married wives, also freedmen. And these lists were incomprehensive to begin with. A number of people who descend from slaves owned by Cherokees didn't even get to make the list because they weren't there. While some modern-day tribes gladly welcome black natives, others continue to proliferate segregation based on Dawes rolls that were forced upon them by the U.S. government almost 150 years ago. Professor Miles notes the irony in this situation. Currently, many descendants of the freedmen strive to earn fundamental rights and the tribal benefits of Native Americans enjoy. Only time will tell if black Indians will win their current lawsuits in federal and tribal courts. Here's more about black Americans Native Americans fight to regain their status. Then it goes on. Come on, man. Like, bro, like you running around here just running off at your mouth. You don't know none of this. Look at this pseudo-ass book right here. And this is why I wanted to show y'all this shit. They even got Clyde Winters in here. We're not just black, we're Native Americans too. They don't even know that shit. Like they use this is a good book. But the mere fact that the blood stay pure. I mean, you gotta understand something right quick. I ain't even done. I'm finna get into some more shit. I'm just getting started. You gotta understand that people they keep on saying Afro-Indigenous, black natives, yada yada yada. They lying. If they don't claim they Africanness and trying to claim they're Native American or Indianness, they are fucking lies. They're crooks. And then they got to prove that, and they can't prove it. They can't prove it. Oh no, somebody asked me my dogs for sale. Yes, sir. Hold up. Who them off of? So hold on, let me tell him. All right. All right. Now that I got that business, I'm getting that business going, man. Let me get over here to this. Mail City sent 2 sources. All right, hold up. Before I get to this, let me see what Mail talking about. Shit, you sent 3. Oh, I got that. Oh, yeah. Hold on, Mail. All I gotta do is open this shit. Hold up. Let me open up the Google Drive. Yep, David Elton's assessment. Exactly. Hold on. Before we move on and get into David Elton's book, we're gonna get into this assessment. Shout out to Mill. We finna catch another elbow slipping. Hold on real quick, y'all. Let me do this. Let me do this real quick. Let me get this up on the screen, man. While I get this up on the screen, y'all get ready. Y'all already know.
From Africa, but they will be able to tell you about Africa. They wouldn't be vaguely saying they from Africa, brother. Like when a European says I'm from Europe, he doesn't say I'm from Europe. He says I'm from Germany. I'm from a particular province. I still got people out there, right? You know, when people say hold on. When people say they from Asia, they tell you where about from Asia they from. They tell you their province. They tell you they still got people out there. These people will confirm that they are indeed a part of their heritage. But you niggas was calling y'all African? Oh, mysteriously, you have no contact with the people you say you descend from. So I don't believe you.
Hating Africa and hating the African, we ended up even hating ourselves without even realizing it. Because you can't hate the roots of a tree and not hate the tree. The roots of a tree and not hate the tree.
You ain't no Indian, please try again. Everybody know you's an African. And Malcolm X said, you can't hate the root without hating the tree. Now take a look at you, you's a wannabe Cherokee. And I told you before, you need some therapy. And why you never show the genealogy? You owe your ancestors an apology. And you know they turning over inside of their graves just because you don't wanna come from a slave. So you gotta take this whipping. I caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple. Caught another apple. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple. Caught another. Let's go. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple. Caught another apple. Caught another apple slipping. Yo, check this out, man. You wasn't already here, man. Dane Calloway lied to you, man. The research guy lied to you, man. Karemio lied to you, man. Your ancestors come from Africa, whether you like it or not. So no matter what you do, no matter what you say, you will always be an African. You can't deny the facts. You can't deny the evidence. You can't deny the genealogy. You can't deny the DNA. You can't deny it, man. Whether you like it or not, you are African. Caught an abo slipping. That's all we do. That's all we do. Let's go.
Got some dewy-eyed thing that you got a friend. I still ask you to look at that mirror. And if nothing's staring back at you is friendly, then you've got no friend.
We about to catch another elbow slipping. Come on, man. The U.S. Transatlantic Slave Trade 1644 to 1867 assessment. David Eltis. As you can see, here it is. They didn't read the assessment. Last year was the bicentennial of the abolition of the African slave trade by the United States. In 2008 is the bicentennial of the law going into effect. But there are perhaps better reasons to reconsider the patterns of the U.S. side of the African slave trade. More African migrants have arrived in the United States since 1992 than during the whole slave trade era. Moreover, notice they said the whole slave trade era. Okay? Moreover, the moment at which the second African diaspora overtakes the first in the terms of size and diversity coincides with the technological revolution. Stop. He answered it right here. More African migrants have arrived in the United States since 92 than during the whole slave trade era. Why? The moment at which the second, not the first would be what we know about the slave trade. The second African diaspora overtakes the first in the terms of size and diversity coincides with the technological revolution. Digitization and the World Wide Web have combined with an established computer revolution to provide historians easy access to documents and, more important, to power to digest and manipulate the information they contain that is way beyond what the predecessors could ever imagine. The impact of technology is particularly significant for a subject where the quality and the quantity of surviving records is generally very strong and the geographic scatter of the documents immense. While there is much still to be discovered about the U.S. trade in Africans, I had an email. We can now throw major new light on its rise and fall, the people involved, the size of the direction, and the great range of other issues, many of which are not at all quantitative. The recent launch of the new transatlantic slave trade database permits an overall reassessment of the colonial America and the U.S. involvement in the slave trade over the more than 3 centuries, when by one or more definitions discussed below, it was a going concern. Containing records of 34,941 voyages to the Americas, plus a new set of interactive estimates of the volume and direction of the business it contains, the most complete compendium of the U.S. slave trade yet, it brings together and, more important, integrates approximately 3,700 voyages that had some connection with North America mainland. Not all the voyages, a specific number. Much though not at all of data were assembled by Elizabeth Donnan, Jay Cottrey, James McMillan, Warren Howard, and numerous other scholars. Voyages that took a year to complete and passed through several jurisdictions, each with its own record gathering process, necessarily generated fragmentary information about their routes and the people who sailed on them. The new voyage database constitutes the first serious attempt to tie the voluminous data of the slave trade to, among other places, the North American continent. But there's an immediate preliminary question of definition. Even if we confine our attention to captives carried across the Atlantic Ocean, as opposed to those coming in from elsewhere in the Americas. See what I said? He clearly said what I told y'all earlier. Even we confine our attention to captives carried across the Atlantic Ocean, as opposed to those coming in from elsewhere in the Americas. They didn't even think about that at the beginning. Neither was this mentioned on Sinetta's platform, according to the clip that YK showed. Watch what it says. At least 3 overlapping definitions of U.S. slave trade come to mind. So there's 3 overlapping. So explain it to us, Eltis. What are you saying? One is the traffic that brought slaves into the territories that either were or became the United States. That's one. What's the other? A second is the traffic carried on enslaving expeditions organized in those territories. That's 2. What's the third one? A third is the traffic carried on under the U.S. flag, which in the 19th century became in part a flag of convenience for slave traders based outside of this shit. But whatever definition is employed, it is rather startling to consider that half a century after the first awakening of scholar interest in slavery and the slave trade in the United States, which has generated many thousands of monographs and articles, there is still no book on the U.S. transatlantic slave trade, however defined. That goes to Melvin's other point of posting a book. Melvin, I already had this book that you put in there. I already got that book. I even got it on, I think it's a few shows ago. I'll leave the link for people to download that book. And I can bring that up because it deals with the data that we already showed. But yeah, we got that. So we're on the same page. So it scarcely seems possible that what is offered here is in fact not so much reassessment as the first assessment. The first definition is probably the one that interests most historians. The size and the origin of the first African diaspora is basic to more issues in the U.S. history than it is possible to list. There may be no monograph on overall subject, but there is certainly no shortage of opinion laid out in books and essays on how many people came from Africa to the United States before slavery was abolished and where those people came from. The literature suggests 2 methods of estimating the number of arrivals from Africa. One is from a demographic approach where scholars use population counts and vital rates from the historical record to calculate arrivals as the residual that cannot be accounted for by births and deaths. The procedure generates net arrivals, or arrivals less departures, to which the discussion below returns. The most carefully constructed series of this nature appeared in 1974 when Vogel and Egerman estimated 653,000 arrivals from all sources, including the Caribbean. A major feature of this series is that it has 45% of this total, or 291,000 arriving in just 30 years, from 1780 to 1810, and 21% arriving 143,000 in the last decade of 1801 to 1810. James McMillan has recently revised estimates for the 1783 to 1810 period downward and incorporated these into Fogel and Egerman's figures, reducing the total of for the whole period of 530,700 from 653. However, the McMillan revisions are based on not only a new population of vital data rates, but rather on a new set of assumptions of what vital rates and population counts might have been. While the new assumptions seem perfectly reasonable, dozens of others that would give quite different results are equally reasonable. There is no compelling reason to accept one set over the other. The root of the problem, of course, lies with the fact that the historical record of vital rates for blacks in what became the United States is very thin before the 19th century and almost non-existent before the mid-18th century. In addition, part of the large jump in the arrivals demographic series late in the period may stem from differences in how the first and the second U.S. census were conducted in 1790 and 1800s relative to their colonial predecessors rather than the reality of immigration. The second of the assessment number of captives arriving from North America stems from shipping data. As it is not possible to find a record of every vessel that brought in slaves, this approach can hardly be said to be free of assumptions either. Nevertheless, the empirical basis of shipping movements appears to be much stronger and internally consistent than that for vital rates in the colonial era. David Richardson and I have argued that the shipping data support of an estimated 389,000 captives arriving in the Americas direct from Africa. There go that number. We think that records survive of vessels bringing about 85% of all the slaves into North America by this route. The estimate does not include slaves carried from the Caribbean to the mainland, but it does incorporate McMillan's recent published data. Pause. I tried to tell y'all when they tried to sit here and play that game that they did not account for the people that came from the Caribbeans. They were stuck. They were stuck. And they were sitting here making claims. Oh, look. Okay, nothing about them puppies. You ain't use my dog. All right. To this total could be added an estimate captives carried from Gambia to Charleston in the early 1700s, which had only just come to light. Of the approximately 390,000 arrivals, the estimates page of slave voyages has only 6,100 disembarking directly from Africa after 1808. This is dramatically lower than the 54,000 estimated by Curtin and the as many as 786,000 projected recently by Ernest Obadele Starks. While the first two of these three estimates purport to measure slave arrivals in the United States directly from Africa, the third seems to be for slave arrivals from all sources. Indeed, at times, the term foreign slave trade in the subtitle of the Starks book appears to include slaves carried under the third definition of the United States traffic offered above, that carried on under the U.S. flag to Cuba and Brazil after 1808. Starks devotes only half page to explaining how this estimate is derived, provides no reference for the source for the mentions in his explanation, and he makes no attempt to break down the 786 arrivals into the three categories of the U.S. slave trading activity discussed here. There are two reasons for believing that the true total of the arrivals direct from Africa was closer to 61,000 than to either the Curtin or the Starks estimates. First is that between 1808 and 1863, the British maintained a significant naval force. Y'all heard me say this shit. I know y'all heard me say this. A significant presence. They're telling you right now, the British maintain a significant naval force off the African coast. I said this. And to a lesser extent, to the Caribbean charge from suppressing the slave trade. British naval cruisers captured 1,559 slave vessels after 1808. Naval officers reported these captures to the admiral, and after they carried their prizes in the courts in the Atlantic, around the Atlantic, these courts generated their own voluminous reports of proceedings, which were sent to London. In addition, all court and naval personnel collected intelligence on the trade. Almost all resulting correspondence survives today in thousands of volumes in the Admiralty 1 and the FO-84 series of the British Naval Archives. None of the officials in London, the Caribbeans, or Africa whose opinions are recorded in this documentation believe that any of the captives on which they reported were destined for the United States. The British government was concerned about the slave arrivals in Texas before it entered the Union, but never about the slaves entering the United States. The second reason for preferring to lower figure is that the 9th census of the United States, the first to be taken after slavery was ended in the nation, shows that less than 0.1% of the black population of the United States was African born. Thus, if 786,500 slaves arrived after 1808, then almost all of them must have been born in the Americas. This brings us to the issue of the intra-America slave trade. Y'all kept hearing me say these things. I'm saying things that I've said before, and he's saying this shit right behind me. So they let you know in my research, in my studies, in my understanding from all these fucking years of dealing with this damn slave trade, that you got to know what was happening. We don't remix history. We don't embellish history. We tell that shit like it is as we come to find it, and we cross-reference that shit and substantiate it. We correct the wrongs and we stick with what's right. For the arrival of the slaves in the smaller vessels that sustained the traffic from the Caribbean into the colonial period, Greg O'Malley has built a separate intra-American slave voyage database and has recently estimated that 66,921 captives disembarking on the mainland. But O'Malley's estimate does not include the period of 1808. It is possible that 780,000 captives born in Americas arrived in the United States via the illegal slave trade. Probably not. Given that this total is greater than all arrivals from Africa into the Caribbean, including Cuba and after all the 1808, as well as comparable to the total of numbers of captives moved from the upper South to the deep South via the U.S. domestic slave trade in the same period. With slavery ended in much of Latin America in 1820 by the French Caribbean by 1848, there were in any event fewer than 200,000 slaves in Martinique and Guadeloupe combined in 1830. And with an effective slave register supervised by the central government in place in the British Caribbean by 1817, only Brazil, Cuba, Puerto Rico could have supplied such a number. It is inconceivable that planters in the booming Cuban and Puerto Rican sugar economies would have sold off their slaves, natives or African-born, to the United States after 1808, and a large movement of Brazilian-born slaves into the United States is also unlikely. Pause. If we go back to the beginning of this article and we read the part where David Eltis is arguing about the data and other people, we'll go back. Right here, in this part right here, where he says, moreover, the moment at which the second, skip. Here we go. Digitization and the World Wide Web have combined with an established computer revolution to provide historians easy access to the documents and, more important, the power to digest and manipulate the information they contain that is way beyond what the predecessors could have ever have imagined. What the fuck is he doing right now? He's arguing about different people's data and estimates and what they're quote unquote saying, who arrived, when, where, and how during these different definitions or phases of the United States birth. This is what he's talking about. He ain't talking about no shit that these fucking stupid ass airheads are on the panel arguing, telling Sharice what she should be arguing, when she, in fact, don't even know what the hell the rest of the article is about. Clearly, after page after page after page, we can get a clear understanding of what it is that he's talking about. He's challenging the data of other people's and trying to get a more accurate assessment of what the fuck happened based on his research and the evidence that him and other historians have comprised over the years. He's trying to set the fucking record straight. He ain't over here saying this is wrong, that is wrong, yada yada this, and yada yada that. He ain't doing none of that bullshit. But some kind of way, we finna be over here on some fuck shit, and we just gonna make an assumption. After he's telling us about these people's estimates and saying, well, that couldn't have been, so it had to been this, or that couldn't have been because it had to be this, or that couldn't have been because that he's breaking that. That's what he's arguing against. He's arguing against other people's data. He ain't saying that the people present ain't African. He ain't saying that people just got here after 1992. No, he's showing you where these people are in society. I mean, man, I don't get. I'm gonna stop right here before I go any further because he's gonna take us somewhere, and then you're gonna see. Look, like I said, as we now believe that 10.7 million slaves came to Americas in total. This new estimate implies that the United States received 3.6% of all the slaves that survived the Atlantic crossing, as opposed to 5 or 6% share that is sometimes cited. It's about clearing up the data to be more specific and then talk about the impact. In 1860, 4 million blacks had descended from a net inflow of 420 coerced migrates. Look at how he chooses this word. So by 1860, it's 4 million black people in America that come from the 420,000 that originally got here directly from Africa. He's saying that. He says who had largely arrived by 1807. The demographic history of the U.S. black population has more in common with the Quebecious 12,000 migrants arriving between 1608 and 1760 provided the base of 800,000 French speakers in 1851. You see how the population just jumps? Oh, it's no problem when it happens, when the statistics are dealing with white people. This is what I mean by people who don't understand it, that when you're dealing with quantitative research, you're dealing with statistical data. One person that is excellent at statistics is Taka Kilimanjaro. He's one of the guys that are a stickler for numbers and data and putting all of this shit in other places. He has one major problem with one person out of all the historians arguing about what transpired in the slave trade. I ain't gonna say the person's name because his name is mentioned even also by David Eltis, but I also have this gentleman's book. Although both of them agree that this should happen and at a certain volume, there seems to be a difference statistically about the numbers. But I'm bringing up Taka for the simple fact his expertise, what he has a doctrine is in the field of this. Clearly, the North American mainland was very much periphery of the Atlantic slave trade. The peripheral status of the mainland trade emerges in other ways. There is no recorded instance of a slave vessel sailing direct from Africa to a port on the North American mainland. The three best known Africans to survive the Middle Passage to colonial North America were Ayubu Suleiman Diallo, that was in Maryland, the poet Phyllis Wheatley in Boston, and the Venture Smith in Rhode Island. The voyages of each of them, as with most of almost all their 400,000 compatriots, were interrupted when the vessel anchored in the Eastern Caribbean. The purpose of each stop was to seek new supplies so much as information on markets. Every slaver captain sought the best market for his captives, and St. Kitts, Antigua, and Martinique, and especially Barbados, would provide the latest news on prices, often the final instructions from owners, and the final destination in the Americas for many slaves if the captain opted not to proceed. Vessels clearing out for Africa and the Americas were required to declare the port at which they intended to sell their slaves. For those declaring for the Caribbean and Brazil almost, here we go. Relative monthly distribution of slave arrivals from Africa to the temperament Americas from 1680 to 1835. North American mainland is the light color. Rio de la Plata is the dark. Look at this. All voyages that reached the Americas sold slaves at the intended port. For North America, however, 1/3 of the slavers that reached the Eastern Caribbean were diverted to some other port. One reason for this was the extra sailing time, and thus higher costs for a voyage to the mainland. More important was the highly seasonal nature of the mainland slave markets. Figure 1 shows that slaver captains aimed to arrive in North America in the summer months preceding the harvest of the major plantation crops. Here we go. May, June, July, August, September, October, going back down. So they came in the summer months at high numbers. The further north the market, the more pronounced was the seasonal effect. In the Caribbean and Brazil, by contrast, the seasons had a much smaller impact of markets for slaves. The vessel intended for the mainland, but unable to coordinate their arrival from the crop harvesting there because of delays in Africa, simply sold their slaves in the major markets of the Caribbean. Figure 1 also shows the trend line for slave arrivals in another market. on the periphery of the transatlantic slaving business. This is one of the temperaments South America, the Rio de la Plata. Here, too, the great majority of the slaves were sold in the summer because of the difficulties in connecting with Potosi and other ultimate markets in the winter. The temperament North absorbed many more slaves than did their temperament South America, but its slave trade nevertheless had more in common with that of its southern counterpart than with the massive traffic to the subtropical Americas. Apart from the seasonal patterns, these similarities included the greater reliance of temperament areas in the intra-America slave trade and the fact that the major subtropical centers of Rio de Janeiro in the South and the British Caribbean North acted as conduits for many of their slaves. The peripheral nature of the temperament slaves market was ultimately caused by their not growing sugar until the 19th century. The slave trade existed because of the sugar cane. In no other crop could the productivity of the coerced labor match that of the slaves producing sugar. I ain't even finna keep reading all this. I can go all day. This shit is all day. It's proven a fact of what we already knew. We ain't got to keep doing this with these people. They have no fucking comprehension. None. So, Eltis has a book. It's called The Rise of the African Slavery in the Americas. You need to get the book. In order for you to get the book, you can go into the description of this particular show, click that link or copy it, pull that link up, and download you a copy of the book. You're welcome. You're welcome. While Yodi is over there shitting his pants because now he sees that these bodies that were coming directly from Africa into North America were all from Africa, he can't argue that these motherfuckers was coming from Europe and this was the transatlantic slave trade. Now he's in a fucking conundrum because we just eliminated his argument, reading his shit, clearing up some confusion with the fake abos, the pretendians. So now Yodi is full of shit all the way. So much so that I'm going to deal with you in just a moment. Matter of factly, we're going to get to that business. We're going to get to that Indian business for sure. So let me stop right here. I ain't going to give y'all the rise of this. I'm going to go to a different book. I gave y'all this book before. I'm coming back to it. It's another Eltis work. Coming back to it. This the Atlas of the Transatlantic Slave Trade. Y'all saw him talking about this book in his video. If you watch YK shit, and then you also had old girl show the video, Napa, when she was cleaning up Dulcinea and Sharice Miss. So I'm gonna scroll down from the introduction shit. Let me back. Right here, you see this? Real slave and sugar prices in the Western Caribbeans in pounds of sterling from 1674 to 1808. You will see that statistical data right here. This all from Eltis' work. So when I told y'all earlier that in his book that Eltis has directions and arrows and shit for people coming from certain places, we ain't playing no games. He got 12.5 million going directly to Brazil and the Caribbeans, and then a small few going up there to the North American inlands, coming all up off the coast. And then them people down there at Rio de la Plata. Look at that. Don't none of these arrows come from Europe. None of the arrows come from Europe. Yodi, none of the arrows come from Europe. You better read before you start talking. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Come on, man. Fuck is you talking about? Shah Sun, you still in the chat? So right off the west coast, right through this gap where you see this arrow, there's these currents that cross wind. They circle. They circle. So if you try to go too far out here with that old school technology for them ships that they had, they couldn't go out there. The currents was so strong that it was spinning the boats in circles, bro. The boats was just going in circles. So instead of them going too far out in the Atlantic when they were coming down the coast, they rode the coastline through the Mediterranean down in from northwest into West Africa, hugging the coastline because the waters was more shallow, and then they can control the freaking ships and they can return back the same way they came because they had control. Eltis is even talking about the fucking winds. Look, trade winds and westerlies and ocean currents determine which Africans arrived in which parts of the Americas, as well as which slaves trading nations were dominating. Period. Come on, man. We studied this too much effort into this. And this book is 300 something pages. And he ain't got nothing but images and then shit like this in it. Which I ain't even gonna read that to you because that's a dagger to you, Yodi. That's a dagger to you, Yodi. We ain't even playing no games. But my whole point, let me get through the introduction. And that's just the beginning of the book, bro. That's just the introduction like this. Oh, let me single page it up. I mean, double the pages. So you can see it. Look at that. Look at Yodi. Beating your head in, Yodi. He got some shit going to Europe, though. These white people ain't on these ships, Yodi. Show me the white population. Show me the white people in Senegambia, Sierra Leone, the Windward Gold Coast, the Bight of Benin, the Biafra, and West Central Africa. Show it. Show it, Yodi. Come on, man. Single page it. Let's go. What else to say? And I'm just going to give you a paragraph of this, bro, because I know, you know, people who got the book, you know what I'm saying? I got to give y'all time to read. So y'all know where all this smoke coming from. Every nation that had an Atlantic coastline and merchants involved in Atlantic trade participated in the transportation of slaves from where? Africa to where? The Americas during when? The slave trade era. The era is generally considered to have begun in 1501 when vessels crossing the Atlantic from Spain began to carry some African captives for sale in the Greater Antilles, the larger islands of the West Indies, and ended in 1867 when the last ship from Africa is thought to have disembarked its captives in Cuba. For most of this time, buying and selling human beings was no different from buying and selling commodities. Participation in the transatlantic slave trade before the 19th century was shaped by opportunity, not morality. A presence in the Americas created the opportunity, and the winds and currents of the Atlantic made the traffic possible. Governments at first tried to channel the slave trade, but thousands of entrepreneurs came to shape the direction and size of the traffic prior to the rise of the abolitionism in the 19th century. A breakdown of the slave trade era into 3 time periods reflect, at least in part, principal slave trading nations entering into the departure from the trade. In first period before 1642, you had the Iberian powers dominated the trade, with Portugal and Spain being united. In 1580 to 1640, and in commercial terms, Their separation takes place in 1641. By the date of the second phase of the trade was underway, as nations of Northern Europe began systemically to engage in it. They were subsequently joined by the traders from the mainland North America. This phase of the trade ended in 1808 when the British and the U.S. anti-slave trade laws of 1807 and 8 took effect, and other Northern European nations began disengaging from the trade. This engagement ushered in the third period, which lasted from 1860 through 1867, and during which the slave trade was again dominated by the Portuguese and Spanish speakers, operating largely from the bases in Brazil and Cuba, against the background of growing abolitionist and suppression activities. As Table 2 shows, the most important maritime powers during the slave trade era were also the world's leading slave traders, the Spanish and the Portuguese, with large assists from northern Italian capital and maritime expertise, established the first European empires in the Americas and pioneered the early slave trade. By the early 17th century, the slave trading systems of North and South Atlantic were firmly established. See map 4. The northern wheel of winds and currents, plus the Guinea current to West Africa, supplied Spanish America. The southern wheel supplied Brazil. The Portuguese flag flew over much of the transatlantic slave trade until the mid-17th century, when the northern European nations established their own colonies in the Americas and almost immediately began a steady traffic in slaves. The Dutch, the French, and English, as well as the Danes, the Swedes, and the Brandenburgers, later the Perusians, Russians, Prussians, and others sent vessels to Africa to obtain captives before 1700. By 1660, a pattern had emerged that held during the next century and a half. The Portuguese no longer had much of a presence in the slave trade to Spanish America and the Caribbean, but had come to control the South Atlantic slave trade, which was conducted not from Portugal, but from Brazil. All other European slave nations operated largely north of the equator. Regular participation by traders based in North America began after 1730. The newly independent United States briefly became a major player in the early 19th century. England was easily the leading slave trading power in the North Atlantic. For most of the 18th century, its ships carried more slaves to Americas than did those of any European country, including Portugal. Each nation supplied captives mainly to its own colonies in the Americas. Man, I don't even know what Yodi talking about in the chat, crying like a little bitch. But I mean, this coming from Africa, bro. This killed your whole argument. You was running around here saying all kind of weird, goofy shit. Now, I know that y'all heard me reading some shit, but y'all couldn't see what I was reading. Don't worry, I got y'all. I gave y'all this book before. Oh, y'all could see it. Let's see. Got it back on the screen. So I ain't even finna play the games with Yodi. Let me make this bigger. Let me make this bigger so everybody can see this. Everybody can see this. Pause the video. Screenshot it. Do whatever the hell you want to do with it. You back in my chat, Yodi, and we still waiting on you to prove we want that $500 bet. We still got the $500 bet on the table. We waiting on you to prove that the definition of slaves means Slavs. I zoomed in on it. Y'all can't see it zoomed in? What the fuck is going on, man? Y'all can't see it zoomed in? That's messed up. But anyways, it talks about from 1501 to 1867 statistical data of all involved. 12.522,570 there we go. 12.5 million. So, baby, let me get off this source and let me come back to David Eltz's other book, the one that I was just had on the screen. Now, I didn't gave y'all these books, bro. So I don't even want to hear that. Where can I get this at? Where can I get that at? Go to the last two shows, look in the descriptions, and start getting the books. If you ain't got them. I need to come out of this chapter real quick. Hold on. Hey, boy, Yodi, man. I'm going to show y'all. Hold on. Let me download this picture, too. Hold up. Let me say the picture. Yodi sent. Talking about he got it from the, you know what I'm saying? Like his source, the best source. He said he got it from the Library of Congress. Like that's going to change some shit. You know what I'm saying? Oh, let me get out of this book real quick. I want to deal with this picture real quick. Let me stop. Let's do this shit live. Let's do this shit live. Let me pull up Google. Google. All right. Let me share my screen. Yo, Yodi, you paying attention? You paying attention, Yodi? You ready? You ready, bro? Let me know when you're ready. Drop a 1 in the chat. You ready, Yodi? You should be able to see the screen. You see it says image, right? You see the screen? This your image, Yodi? This your image, Yodi? Yeah, that's what you're waiting for. This your image, right? This is what you put. You sent this, right? This is what you sent. You sent this image, right? Why did you send this? Tell the people why you sent me this. In my email, that you sent me, you sent the picture. You said American Indian, what color? You sent me this image and said American Indian, what color? You said you got it from the Library of Congress. How are you determining the phenotype of an image? We finna get back to that, right? So we at the Library of Congress. You still should be able to see the screen. This is Yoda. Yoda's sending this. Did you read this, Yodi? Let me zoom in. This from your source. Print shows 5 men, an Englishman, a Dutchman, a native representing America, a Spaniard, and a Frenchman urinating into a pot. The Englishman says, "Say what they will, I call this an honorable pee." The native says, "I call this a free and independent pee." And the Frenchman says, "Jack English, we confess your exceeding good nature. Though we have wrangled you out of America, you freely make pee with us. 5 swords, 2 drums, and the flags of the representative nations rest on the ground before the pot. Includes 16 lines of verse." This was published by J. Burrow White, Lion Bull Stairs, Surrey-side Blackfriars Bridge, 1783, January 16th. They call it the Urination, Peace, International Relations, United States History Revolution is what they call this. The American Revolution in drawings and in prints, a checklist, graphics of yada, 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 yada. What you want to argue here? You want to say that that's a what you want to call this? They all peeing in a pot together. You want to make the red man black? Is that what we're doing? We making a Native American, we're gonna try to make him black, Yodi? You want to try to make it black, Yodi? This nigga in the chat think that I don't hide nothing. The General Piss or Peace. This is a cartoon print. Part of Cartoon Prints British. Watch this. Click on Cartoon Prints British. You're going to get more of the same shit. Yodi, this isn't a description of people, bro, and how they looked. This isn't. What you gave us ain't got nothing to do with somebody being black, red, or white. They're representing everybody. You know who ain't even represented on here? Guess who ain't represented on here in the 1700s? There's no one that is black here, as in a descendant from Africa. Ain't even a part of the equation. This is all the white people recognizing one another and then recognizing the Native Americans and then excluding the black people, who they talk about in the same years that puts it down when they puts it down. They don't even recognize any black people. Not free blacks, not none of that. Clearly not being represented here. So why would you send me this? There's no supportive evidence for you, bro. It's a cartoon painting. This is a cartoon painting. So this is a fair description of whatever's going on. It's sarcastic speech going on. They drop down their arms and all taking a pee in the jug. They call it the urination. The heading, etchings, hand-colored. Satires, visual works. Genre, satires, etchings, hand-colored. You come up with a new way to look stupid. For the last few weeks, you've come anywhere near this channel, bro. Yodi, you do an amazing job of looking stupid. I give you that. Now, when you're ready to learn, you'll get past your bullshit. You ain't ready to learn. You stuck, bro. Let me show you something. Let me show you something real quick. Hold on. I'm finna show you. Let me bring the picture back up. Watch this. Yodi, look at your image. Hold on, let me get back to it. Let me bring it over here. Look at your image. Watch this, Yodi. Look at your image right here. You see your image? You see your image, right? This is your image. This is what you're trying to push, right? This is your image. Watch this, Yodi. Watch this, y'all. Let's pull it up. Now we saw that one. Now watch this, y'all. So this what you on, right? Now look at these white folk, and then look at these people right here. Look at that. That look black, right? Since that's what we doing. That's what we doing, right, Yodi? These Negroes is black. They look totally different. Hold on. Let me zoom in. Let me get you right. Yodi. Look at these dudes. They don't look nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, like the dude that you sent me a picture of, Yodi. Since you want to do some lookership, look at this. Political broadside depicting the burning of Washington and the satiring British Emancipation Offers, CA 1840. Yo, done, son. Son, done. Yodi. Can you read? Damn. That's fucked up. Look at your picture, bro. You just really thought that you was on to some shit. Now I just showed you a whole nother color. And get what, Yodi? You couldn't do nothing with it. I'm gonna show you another one. And this one gonna be straight funny. You see how they painted them people black, and one didn't have no pants on or shirt, and they didn't have no feathers on their fucking head. You see that? You see how they distinguish that? Now, let me show you this shit. Hold on, I'm trying to see if the picture gonna clear up. I don't like the way the picture look. Look at this picture, y'all. Lord Mayor's Day, or filling the gluten's balloon. There's a whole description of this going on right over here on the left-hand side. This from November 1784. This right around the time that you're trying to push your idea. Notice that these people are colored in. These two are colored in, and they ain't got no shit on their head. It says it's a very fat alderman in a furred livery gown and a tie wig with a very protruding stomach is being fed with turtle soup. And he is seated in an armchair in a small dais inscribed, fair, round belly with good Capon lip Shakespeare. That's what it says. Right over here. This is in the British Museum, Yodi. Right there. This shit's, yeah. We ain't even dealing with that. You sent me a picture and tried to insinuate some shit. And then I'm gonna show you another picture in the same year this coloring someone a different shade. I'm gonna show you more from that time period. That's 1834. That's 1868. That's on Twitter. Definitely ain't using that shit. Watch this, y'all. Let me pull this shit up. Black charge. You so motherfucking pseudo. Oh, look, there you go. Look at here, Yodi. The black charge. Come on, man. I don't know what you done got into, bro. But since we doing lookership, looky. Oh, I got one more for you, Yodi. I got one more for you, bro. Nah, I don't even like that one. That old dude on a pickle. Why you showing me this shit, bro? This ain't scholarship. You see how fucked up that is? You sent the picture, then I show you the picture, and then next thing you know, I show you a picture in the same year of how they was paying black people then, if that's what we going by. I mean, I don't know what you sent me the shit for. You so caught up in color, you know what I'm saying? So now motherfucker shows you the color. Now you ain't got no idea what's going on. You cannot come to a conclusion based on a painting that they're telling you. It's not giving you specifics, Jody. It's not telling you what's really going down, bro. I don't know what the fuck wrong with you, man. The whole shit was a representation of these Europeans and Indians creating a peace treaty. It had no representation of that native being black. It's what you're trying to insinuate. That you was already here. So you're a lying sack of shit once again. And you just doing that shit because you don't know no better, bro. And it's sad. It's fucked up. That you the way you are. Pseudo as fuck. He want me to read an outdated book again? How many more outdated books he want me to fucking read? You read older books on history and your ass is stuck and wrong. You ain't even reading them books because the books you telling people to read don't even agree with you, bro. None of them books put black people in America before Columbus. None of them. Zero. None of them say that black people was already here either. And you got the women beating your ass up. Man, I wish I had more video to show y'all, but these Negroes is over there crying on Smoke Signal Channel like a little bitch. Then they start showing Dose and his little whatever, I guess. I don't know, hold up. Look, see, they reporting shit, so I really can't even show what I want to show. Can't. I wish I could. Servants of Allah, African Muslims enslaved in the Americas. Y'all can get that book for free too. Yeah, we ain't got to play no game with these busters. Hey, busters. African ethnobotany. in the Americas. We got all that. We got access to all that. Hold on, I know this ain't the Black Rice book. I was about to say, she had to put that up there. Copyright notice on that joker for sure. Shit. We're trying to make her book free to people. Let these white books free to people. Yeah, y'all don't you don't want no real smoke, Yoda. Look at Yoda, same dumb shit. Look what he's saying. Last week he said Africans equaled a whole nother shit. Yodi, Africans don't equal none of this shit you just mentioned, bro. West African. You don't know what the fuck you want to be, Yodi. You just full of stupid shit. You don't know what you talking about, bro. You just in the chat just said any goddamn thing. You look totally stupid. You look totally stupid. As black as your dumb ass is, how the fuck are you claiming to be like you've been here? You mentally ill and retarded too, bro. You ain't no different than the mother motherfuckers. Deny your Africanness. Like, you don't know nothing, bro. You don't know anything. You stupid. Look, so I want to share with Yodi real quick. I want to share something with you real quick, Yodi. I want you to read this real slow. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to slide it on over real quick. Look at the screen, Yodi. Look at the screen. In fact, nearly 1,000 convicts a year left Britain in the half century after 1718. This may not seem like many compared to an African slave trade drawing 25,000 a year from Africa in the last third of the 17th century and rising to an average of 50,000 a year in a half a century after 1700. Yet consider the population of England was only 7% that of Europe in 1680. And if the rest of Europe had followed the English practice in proportion, 14,000 convicts would have been available. A traffic in degredos from Portuguese possession to Brazil and Angola existed from the 16th to the 19th century. And the massive fortifications of Havana and San Juan, as well as Spanish outposts in North Africa, were built in part with Iberian convicts. Germanic states that lacked maritime facilities sold convicts to Italian cities for gallery service. In France, about 1,000 convicts a year arrived at Marseille in the later 17th and 18th centuries. But these were all male and mostly between 20 and 25 years of age. The potential for the large, more demographically representative traffic in French convicts is clear. Possible sources other than convicts were numerous. Prisoners from wars, as in Africa, could have provided many additional plantation laborers. The English were well aware of the cheap labor possibilities of the latter. Just when sugar production in Barbados was expanding mostly rapidly within a year or two of the acquisition of Jamaica, the English used Scottish prisoners taken at the Battle of Dunbar and Dutch prisoners taken from the Dutch naval vessels to help drain the fens. Indeed, when in rebellion, the Irish and Scots alone could have filled the labor needs of the English colonies. Nor, see, this is why you got to read. This is why you got to read, bro. Nor does this speculation fully incorporate vagrants and the poor. A properly exploited system drawn on convicts, prisoners, and vagrants from all countries of Europe could easily have provided 50,000 forced migrants a year within serious disruption to either international peace or existing social institutions that generated and supervised these potential European victims. If such an overflow had been directed to the plantation colonies, it is also unlikely that mercantile statesmen would have questioned either the scale or the direction of the flow. More specifically, British convicts could have replaced African slaves in the Chesapeake, the destination of most transport ships. The first recorded shipment of convicts dates to 1615. Until you remember when you said that this shit happened in the 19th century, nigga? They were shipping convicts in 1615 until 1770. The number of convicts' arrivals was at least 2/3 of the slaves in total. Although in the 1730s and 1740s, slave arrivals were between 2 and 4 times larger. If all whites and their subsequent progenitors sent against their will to colonies had been accorded the slave status of African immigrants, there is no reason why the number of white slaves in Maryland and Virginia would not have been at least large as the actual black slave population at the end of the period, colonial period. He's basically telling you the shit that you believe is bullshit. Wasn't no white slaves. They would have outnumbered or been in the same just the numbers as the black slaves that they got from fucking Africa. But for the simple mere fact that you don't know this simple shit, it behooves us. So listen, I'm done beating up dummies, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm done beating up dummies, man. This nigga still saying stupid ass shit. 18 million, he said 18 million Slavs were sold in the Caribbean, the air. That has nothing to do with the transatlantic. What you're talking about, Yodi, in the chat has nothing to do with the transatlantic at all. Absolutely nothing. Zero. Zilch. Nah, I ain't gonna bring it up. I ain't bringing the hospital back up. I ain't bringing the hospital back up. I ain't finna go down the Yodi road today. I'm actually finna get off, man, and then find me something to eat because I ain't ate today. Yodi, your life is capped.
From Africa, but they will be able to tell you about Africa. They wouldn't be vaguely saying they from Africa, bro. Like when a European says I'm from Europe, he doesn't say I'm from Europe. He says I'm from Germany. I'm from a particular province. I still got people out there, right? You know, when people say hold on. When people say they from Asia, they tell you where about from Asia they from. They tell you their province. They tell you they still got people out there. These people will confirm that they are indeed a part of their heritage. But you niggas was calling y'all African? Oh, mysteriously, you have no contact with the people you say you descend from. So I don't believe you. Bro.
Hating Africa and hating the African, we ended up even hating ourselves without even realizing it. Because you can't hate the roots of a tree and not hate the tree. The roots of a tree and not hate the tree.
You ain't no Indian, please try again. Everybody know you's an African. And Malcolm X said, you can't hate the root without hating the tree. Now take a look at you, you's a wannabe Cherokee. And I told you before, you need some therapy. And why you never show the genealogy? You owe your ancestors an apology. And you know they turning over inside of their graves just because you don't wanna come from a slave. So you gotta take this whipping. I caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple. Caught another apple. Caught another apple slipping. Hey, caught another apple. Let's go slipping. Hey, caught another apple. Let's go slipping. Hey, caught another apple. Let's go. Caught another. Let's go. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple slipping. Caught another apple. Caught another apple. Caught another apple slipping. Yo, check this out, man. You wasn't already here, man. Dane Calloway lied to you, man. The research guy lied to you, man. Karimio lied to you, man. Your ancestors come from Africa, whether you like it or not. So no matter what you do, no matter what you say, you will always be an African. You can't deny the facts. You can't deny the evidence. You can't deny the genealogy. You can't deny the DNA. You can't deny it, man. Whether you like it or not, you are African. Call the abo slipping. That's all we do. That's all we do. Let's go.
Got some dewy-eyed thing that you got a friend. I still ask you to look at that mirror. And if nothing's staring back at you is friendly, then you've got no friend.